something you prefer, or go back to thumbnails, and we can make these thumbnails pretty darn big. So this is a very large thumbnail. My screen size is actually down a little bit, so I could probably make it even bigger. We can also check all and uncheck all from here. I'm just going to check a few of these and select those as my clips. On the right-hand side, we have options to transfer the media or not. If I just choose ingest, as I'm going to do in my demo, I'm leaving them in the same location. I'm just going to be bringing them into my file, but most times you will be clicking on the transfer to destination button. And you can browse for a location, create a subfolder that's automatically, as you see here, renamed with the date. And you don't have to transcode, but if you want to, you can transcode. Transcoding will be using the media encoder engine, which would launch in the background and allow you to transcode to any of the codecs that we happen to have loaded in our system. And we'll talk a little bit more about which codecs are supported, including brand new updates for Creative Cloud, which is ProRes on the Mac and Dnxhd on the Mac and Windows. You can also choose to stitch the clips together. We called this concatenate in CS6, which really wasn't that much of a description. This is great if you've got a whole bunch of clips from a camera and you wanted them really to act like one new clip. This would actually stitch them together. Stitching does not work unless you're transcoding. So if I don't transcode, I cannot stitch these clips together. If I'm not transcoding, I can also verify by file size. Either file size or bit-by-bit comparison. MD5 will be in the future. We're working on that, but right now we can do a bit-by-bit comparison and guarantee that the file was transferred correctly. We can also come down in here and add multiple destinations. So I could add several backups at the same time. So if I'm ingesting this out on the field and I'm importing it from a card, I can have it go to my drive for editing and then go to maybe 2 external drives for a backup right away while it's being brought in from the card. You'll also notice in the corners of each one of these, we have these little on and off buttons that we can turn on and off, and you can tell when something has been accessed or not. So even if I twirl that triangle up, you can see transfer is turned off, so I'm not transferring or transcoding. Next up is file metadata and file renaming. We can now rename these files, and we can add metadata inside. And to add metadata, you actually have to start by creating a metadata scheme or a preset. So if I click in New Preset, it begins with nothing here. I haven't saved this yet, so I can begin to add fields. And the idea behind here is you type what the field is. So maybe I'll put producer, and you can also click over here and make this a required field. So someone has to fill this in, and then the value obviously is the producer name. I could add another one, and it could be location, and they would add the location name. Prelude is smart enough to not allow you to not save these. So if I just try to ingest or close or cancel this, it's going to want me to push this button right here and save that value. And I'm really not going to do that right now. But that's how you would add metadata inside there. Renaming files. Click on here. It's the same thing. I need to add a preset. Notice that both for metadata and for file renaming, you can import and export presets. So if you want several people to be adding the same kind of information, you could do that very easily. Only one person has to create that preset. Just like before, I go in to create my preset and I start adding fields. This time we have 4 different fields for renaming this file, and I could do things like add the custom date. So I'll call this shoot 1, and then I'll add custom text underscore, then the date, another underscore under that, and then an auto increment up to 4 numbers. And just above here, you can see a sample of what this looks like. Shoot 1 underscore the date underscore 0001, and it would increment accordingly. You would also have to save this too if you wanted, and I could continue if I want. I don't have to be finished. I can continue adding different criteria to the name if I wanted to. So that's if I wanted to rename or add metadata or transfer the files. I'm just going to access the files and leave them in the same place just for this demo right here. And when I click the Ingest button, the clips show up in the left-hand side. And if I was transcoding, you'd notice down here a progress bar start to show up as I started to bring that data in, and copying it would be the same thing. Double-click on a file, hit the space bar, and I'm playing that file back. Because we support so many different native file formats right out of the box, both in Prelude and Premiere Pro, this could be a native format file, ARRI, RAW, RED, what have you, that we didn't have to transcode and bring in. So one of the things that you probably would do at this point is maybe add a bit of metadata or even trim these clips. So what you could do is you could add subclips inside here. So wherever this is playing, you'll see on the left-hand side I've got 6 different markers. This is something that you can update, so you could create your own marker set inside here, and I could create a subclip. Click on number 1, and you can see the name is showing up inside here, and I could override that. I could just start typing Ali shot 01 and hit play, and at any point hit Option or Alt 0 or O rather, I and O to get me in and out. So now I have a subclip inside here, and when I save this, the subclip shows up right inside over here. And I could continue making a bunch of subclips. I'm just actually going to delete that because I just want to add some simple comments inside here, and then we'll send this to Premiere Pro. Just to also let you know, I could very easily, if I want, export this project out, and I can even, after I send this to the rough cut, I could be sending this out to Final Cut XML. So you can use Prelude in a Final Cut XML workflow. So let's open up this one in here, and I'm just going to add a comment, and I'm going to name this comment Lighten Up Ali. And you can see my comment shows in there. I could do this on the fly, so this is a full keyboard driven workflow. I don't have to stop and actually use the mouse. I could be adding comments, JKL, scrubbing anywhere I want in here, adding any of these by pushing the number keys on the top of my keyboard from 1 to 6 inside there. So I've added that. Go to this one, and I'll add a comment in here. And this is the one that I think is a nice shot. And I'll scooch this up over here. And this metadata is actually being saved in the file. So you don't have to actually transfer this with the project. And this was part of the idea behind what we were doing with CNN and BBC, that they wanted this metadata to be in the file, so 5 years from now, 10 years, when someone finds this video, they don't need the project. All the metadata is in the file. I'm going to say darken the sky for this one. All right. And trim that up. I can also make a rough cut. So again, we've got 4 things in here, but you don't have to do 4 things. You could just use Prelude to ingest and then move on, or ingest and log, or not list and clip. So I'm going to click on here and make a new rough cut. I'm just going to save it as Untitled. And when I open that up, it opens up and it looks very similar to Premiere Pro. And I can take these clips here, and I can append them to the rough cut. And let me grab that one too. So you can now see in my timeline, my rough cut, my clips are there, and also the comments that I've added are still there too. So this is, the end of the line for a lot of people. They've got a quick rough cut, they've got all the clips, some comments, metadata, possibly renaming and transcoding, and they're off to the races. What you can do at this point is I'll select the rough cut and go to File, Export, and I can export that rough cut if I wanted to. I can export the project. Just to note, while I'm on this menu, Prelude does work with Adobe Anywhere, and we've got lots of information on Adobe.com and Adobe TV about Anywhere. Basically, this would allow me to work with remote clips somewhere else that don't have to be on site. But what I want to show you is I'm going to use this Send to Premiere Pro. So if I didn't have to stop and talk about this, I've ingested, added some stuff, created a rough cut, boom, click on Send to Premiere Pro, and it's going to open up Premiere Pro, and there it is. I'll double click on my rough cut, hit play. You'll notice the little green comment markers are inside there, and it's live and ready to go. If I click on my markers panel over here, you can see that I've got my markers. Double-clicking on the marker, and it's going to open that marker out, and you can see there's the text that was added in that marker. And I'm just going to go to this clip where I added that note and open this up, lighten up the alley. Let's just imagine for the moment that I did that. If I type in the word done in that lighten up alley comment, click OK, what you'll actually see back in Prelude is that I have added the word done. So you can see that over here on the right-hand side. This is a bi-directional communication. So while you're typing into the comments in Premiere Pro, they're updating inside Prelude. So that is a really quick look at Prelude. That it's really a simple application. It supports, as I mentioned, a bunch of different formats out of the box, and works well not only in Premiere Pro but also in an XML-based workflow. So let me close that up, and I'll go back to Premiere Pro, and I'll also close that project there. All right. It's important. I wanted to show you working with Premiere Pro without a project. So starting from scratch, let's imagine that you are ingesting from Premiere Pro and not in Prelude. If you've used Premiere Pro in the past, when you create a new project, we get to name that project, and I'm just going to quickly name that Test 2. I'm going to leave it wherever it is, and click OK. And the dialog box that you might be used to in previous versions of Premiere Pro did not come up, and that's the Create a New Sequence dialog box. We thought we don't need that. Why do we show that? Some of the engineers thought it was a useful thing, but to me, this makes Premiere Pro more like After Effects, maybe more like Photoshop, where you launch the application, and from this point, this is where we create sequences. If you want to, that sequence dialog box is down here in the new item, that little page icon, or I can go to File, New, and create new sequence, or press Command-N on the Mac, Control-N on Windows. And then you get this dialog box, which to some people it's a little bit difficult. It can be a bit of a science project because there's quite a few choices in here. One thing to note is that we now have Dnxhd presets, and as I mentioned, we now support, we have ProRes out of the box on the Mac, so we can encode and decode on the Mac, and on Windows, of course, we can just decode. We cannot encode that stuff. Every raw files, R3D, so you can make so many different native formats directly inside here. I'll show you the easiest way to make a sequence in a moment. I also wanted to show you that in the settings dialog box here too, Let me just get one of these. In the settings dialog box, you can set the editing mode, and you'll notice that there's a ton of choices in here. Again, if you want to customize this and choose something specific to a certain codec or hardware card system that you have, you can do that. Also in the tracks section in here, this is where you can add or remove any of the tracks that you want. If I show you all the different tracks in here, standard, you can just think of that as a stereo track. You don't see a stereo track. You'll see a stereo submix and stereo masters. But the reason we don't call a stereo track anymore is the standard track accepts both mono files and stereo files all within the same track without any problems. So that's why that's not named that way. But for instance, if I wanted to maybe work with a P2 camera and bring this in and have two mono files, I could do that. Or I could have two standard tracks, and I could also convert those to the four camera files that, the four audio files that typically come in with a P2 card. I could have 3 and 4 deleted and 1 and 2 turned to mono, and each one of those mono files would land in a stereo track that would allow each mono file to be panned and have its own volume. You can also save this as a preset. So if there's a certain preset you set up here and you want to use a lot, you click down there and you save that, and you can name your preset. I don't have any sequences loaded in my project right now, but I could also click this Load from Sequence button and load from a specific sequence. I can also tell it how many video tracks I want. So if I constantly want to have 2 video tracks, 2 audio tracks set to standard, I could save that as a specific setting. So as I mentioned, you don't need that dialog box to make a sequence. It's much, much easier to make a sequence than that. I also wanted to address drag and drop. So far, you know, I'm showing you how to bring stuff in Prelude. You might be inclined to choose the file import, and although that's, you know, an old way of doing it and it's a tried and true way of doing it, it doesn't bring in all the metadata and it's not intelligent. The reason being is import doesn't understand things like if a card, a clip was spanned between 2 cards, it won't recognize that correctly as being one clip. The media browser, which we'll get into in a second, will understand that. So it makes more sense to use the media browser. That being said, I know a lot of people love drag and drop, so I thought I would do this. Here's a bunch of Canon 5D files that I'm just going to drag and drop. And I'm just going to make a point that what I'm dragging them from is a pretty cool Lassie product. It's the Big 5 NAS Pro. And this is really a server. I'm connected through GigE on my HPC 800. So this allows me to drag this stuff over the network, and it's going to bring in those files and show them up. And if I go to my preview mode, you can see that I've got my preview showing up, hover scrub over top of these, just like before. So what is the easiest way to make a sequence from a file? Right-click and choose New Sequence from Clip. And when you do that, the clip shows up into a new sequence. We understand what's in this sequence, and we end up making a sequence exactly the same as that clip. And you can see we've named it the name of that clip, and I could change it to whatever I want. If I wanted to take that a step further, I could grab all of these clips, right-click, and choose New Sequence from Clip, and it will put them end-to-end in my timeline. Really great for dailies, play out, or a quick rough cut with a bunch of clips inside here. And you'll also notice down here, Create Multicam Source Sequence. Just want to point it out, we're not going to get into this, but we have the ability now in Premiere Pro to not only create a source sequence, but also sync these based on audio. So if you don't have time code or click or what have you, as long as the audio is readable on each one of the camera's tracks, then you could combine them that way. But I'm going to show you a new sequence from clip. There it is, and all my clips show up. I just hit play, and they're playing back. Remember, these are playing back over my local area network off my my NAS Pro 5.
Colin, can I ask a quick question? Does it support FCP XML version 5?
EDLs?
Don't know. We'll come back to that question later. We'll get some more details for you.
Yeah. So we can definitely work with XML from Final Cut 7 and the XML that Apple creates. We can also import and export out EDLs. I'll just show you while we're here. File, export. These are the formats that we can work with. So we can import and export EDL, OMF, AAF to and from Avchd, and Final Cut Pro XML. All right. So let me just get rid of those and go to the media browser. And when I got rid of my sequence, I just want to reset my current workspace. Okay. So here is the media browser. It's easy to get the media browser mixed up with the project file because both will look very similar. The big difference here is with the media browser, the files have not been brought into my computer yet. There's also a very useful keyboard shortcut. And I'm just going to get down to my files here. And the keyboard shortcut is the tilde key. It's the squiggly key above the tab key on both Mac and Windows. This is a pretty small window trying to look at all of my media, but if I tap that key, it will make whatever panel I'm currently looking at full screen. And this really makes sense for the media browser. I could take this whole panel if I wanted, tear it off, and happen to move that to another screen. I'm currently using an NVIDIA K5000 card, which I was amazed to find out supports 4 displays. So I'm actually sitting here with 4 separate displays, one of them a big screen television. I could drag this media browser up to the big screen TV and be looking at each one of these incredibly large thumbnails and being able to hover scrub over top of them. This is such an addicting way to work with your media rather than when you go to the file import dialog box, you get very minimal information when you're looking at these files. You'll also notice that this does look very similar to the ingest dialog box in a Prelude. Prelude used this same technique for bringing that in. And the way that it looks, the thumbnails, hover scrub, and also clicking inside here and getting JKL and this little playhead that you can move around in here. The other thing that's important to mention is if you happen to have a third-party card like AJA, Blackmagic, or Matrox as your external monitor, when you hover scrub over top of these files, you will not be sending information to that AJA, Blackmagic, Matrox, Bluefish card. But when you click inside and you expose this yellow timeline with the playhead, this is now going to be going out to that third-party card. So if you've got a large display monitor to check things out, you could be doing that as soon as you click on that. I could select all of these if I want and import them. We don't have little check boxes down here. You basically shift or command or control shift the ones you want. I can right-click now and choose import. I can also open these in the source monitor if I wanted to preview them. It's important to know that opening in the source monitor does not import the file. It looks like it, but it's not. It's just another way of checking that file. And if I click import, hit the tilde key again to jump back out and go to my source display, there are all my files imported, and just like before, I could select that and create new sequence from clip, and all my sequences show up inside here. So just a couple of different ways of ingesting files inside here, way to import them in, and depending on the way that you like to work, I just wanted to try to cover everybody's workflow, but I will stress This media browser is going to be something that you'll love a lot. You can also use this in the field. Some of our customers are really successful at using the media browser, plugging in a card from a camera, and doing a quick assembly edit in the field to check to see if you've got all the coverage that you need. All right, I'm going to close this project and open up a different one. And we'll get into our relinking, which we have completely revamped in CC. This is a big update, a long time request for many users who wanted to have a much smarter relinking system because we really didn't have the best relinking system. Occasionally it was a very manual job to do that. All right, so I've got a pretty simple sequence here. And you can see that the clips are actually there, but I want to make them offline. So I'll select all 3 of the clips for the sequence, right-click, and choose Make Offline. I'll get a prompt whether I want to delete the files or just leave them online, just unlink them. We have to actually go out of our way in Premiere Pro for our demos to make something offline because the program is so smart now in relinking files. So I have to manually do that. The files obviously are missing. If I select all 3 files and right-click and choose Link Media, I'll get a dialog box that will come up. This is our new relinking dialog box that is very smart. On the left-hand side, you'll see Match File Properties. I need at least one of these 4 to be clicked, either the name or the extension, or the media start, or the tape name. At least one of those has to be in there. But I could, for instance, not search for the file extension, but the file name. So this would be an easy way to relink to higher res media that was originally maybe a QuickTime LT, ProRes, and I'm relinking now to R3D files. On the right-hand side, you can see I have the option of aligning time code. The most important one is relink others automatically. A big yay for that one because we did not have that before. And I tell you, having to relink hundreds of files before by hand is not a lot of fun. And we also have the option of using the media browser to actually locate the files. So once I have those selected, I'm going to click on Locate. It's going to bring up the new Locate dialog box, which is the media browser. So you can see the same hierarchy on the left-hand side that I could access. Very important, if you look at the top, you'll actually see the last path and the current path. Very typical when you're moving files to have maybe the hard drive is different, but the relative path is actually the same. And if I wanted to, I could type in a new path name. You can see it's located the file I'm looking for, and I get hover scrub capability. I can click inside and hit JKL keys to make sure that that is the right file. I'm also selecting down here to display only the exact name matches. There's actually way more files in this folder, and if I click on that, you'll see it's going to start to create all the thumbnails for every single file in there that it can, but I'm really just looking for that first file. And you remember I had Find Others automatically, so if I just click OK to relink the first one, it's going to relink all of them, and they're magically back in the same place. Finally, professional quality relinking in Premiere Pro CC that came directly from our customers' requests. All right, I showed you the media browser, but I want to show you something that really is radically new. And previous to this, we were just looking for the files that we wanted to bring in that were just native files. But I want to show you that if I come down in here, I'm going to actually not click on media files. You'll notice that I have Premiere Pro projects in here. So what if I had a project open, but I wanted to go and peek inside another completely different project, but not load it? So if I click on a Premiere Pro project, it's going to launch Dynamic Link Server and open that up for me. So if I look inside here, I can see that I've got source files that I'm working on. So if I wanted to maybe go in here and grab some of the sound effects I had, there they are. I could also grab any of the sequences that I might have loaded inside here. So if I've got sequences loaded, they would also show up. Any other files that I'm loading, and you can see it builds all the thumbnails automatically for that file. So I could import all of this if I want, the whole project, different pieces of it, any media, graphics files, Photoshop files, you name it. Anything that's inside this project now, I'm peeking inside, and I can grab it inside there. We can't open multiple projects, but this will suffice for a lot of folks who want to get into those files. And then once we have them imported, they work just like any other file. The last thing is cleaning up a project and maybe saving things out in the File menu, Project Manager. Admittedly, we have not done a lot to this, so if you've used the Project Manager in the past, it's okay for most files. It's probably going to need an update in the future, but for most people it's great. It's going to create a new project. You can tell it to exclude unused clips. You can tell it to include preview files, audio conformed files. You can tell it to rename the media files to match the clip names if you want, send the destination, and you can see in this exact example, the original project size is 37 gigabytes, and the new file is 18 gigabytes, and on this drive I have 14 terabytes open. I could also come up here and start deselecting certain sequences, and I'm also telling it to remove any files that I don't have. So if I recalculate this, and it now looks at those files that it doesn't need, it's going to give me a new update. Oh, I need to say create a new trimmed project. That's much better. Now let me calculate. The only gotcha with a trimmed project is there are only certain files that can actually be trimmed. Trimmed meaning if I had a 30-minute clip in here and I only ever used 5 minutes of that clip, it's going to trim it down to the 5 minutes if it's a format we understand. Now, although we can play back formats like R3D and ARRI Raw native, excuse me, we can't trim those files. They're just proprietary formats that we cannot touch, cannot trim. So some will be made smaller, others will not. You can see we're saving a little bit of space here with this file. It's about 17 gigabytes now. So that way it's going to make a new project for us. We are working on better ways to trim file formats and use smart previews and stuff like that, but you know, we'll get to that in future versions. So that is a quick understanding of imports, formats. Oh, I should also show you while I'm in the media browser. These are all the supported files that we will understand. Everything, as I mentioned, from ARRI Raw, QuickTime formats, ProRes, Dnxhd. You'll also see P2, XDCAM EX. If I go down to the bottom here, XDCAM EX, Dnxhd. We also understand those formats. If I just go over to my file over here, these are the assets that we understand the hierarchy of the folders. So if you have a P2 card, we will actually understand that P2 card and look inside that card and show you just the files without having to look at the contents folder and the video folder. Same with AVCHD files. We'll look right into the stream folder and show you those files, Canon XF. Red, of course, R3D files will show you the files you want. And again, you don't have to go through all of those different levels to understand that. HDV and XDCAM EX and HD. So those are the ones that we understand the hierarchy, but we'll understand all these other formats, including now you'll see a closed captioning format in here because we now support closed captioning directly in Premiere Pro. So bottom line is, if you want to work in a transcoded workflow or you want to work in a completely native mixed format workflow, Premiere Pro is going to be able to handle that you name it, drag and drop, file import, or use the media browser, or send over from Prelude. Lots of ways to get things to work in and out of Premiere Pro CC. I'd like to open it up for any questions that we happen to have right now, and I'm happy to show you things while we are still connected here.
Terrific. I've got a couple for you, Colin. Just to further clarify something we touched on earlier, what version of Final Cut Pro XML is Premiere Pro CC capable of exporting and importing? The question asker was saying that CS6, to their understanding, can only do FCP XML version 4, but not 5.
We just updated it. I would definitely have to find that one out. So while I'm answering other questions, I'm going to do a quick search over on this side and and see. I know whatever we had in CS6 we updated, and it's definitely the most current version for Final Cut Pro 7.
All right. Moving on to a media browser question. The question is, can you rename media to match clip, in quotes, in the browser one at a time without having to use Project Manager?
Can I rename them in here?
Can you rename media to match clip in the browser?
No, you cannot.
Okay.
Again, that would be something that Prelude would be doing.
Okay. Here's another question. When do you plan to allow users to open multiple projects at once? This is a deal breaker for a lot of people.
Yeah, and that's why we allow you now to look inside in the project, in the media browser. We understand that, but it is not an easy thing. It's a complete re-architecture of the file format that we have in Premiere Pro. So if it was something we could flip a switch on tomorrow, we could do it, but I can't make any promises of when that's going to happen, but we hear it loud and clear for some users.
Okay. Will the closed captioning movie be exported to a tapeless format file? Premiere Pro CS6 only outputs to tape.
It will do some QuickTime formats and also out to sidecar files.
Thank you. Do we have any more questions? Doesn't look like it at this point. Oh, wait. We do have a few more comments coming in, Colin. They say, it looks awesome. And here's another question for you. Is there a way to make 2 mono files back into a stereo file? Now, maybe that's something we'll be covering in greater detail on Thursday during the audio session, but
you want to make 2 mono files into a stereo file. Is
correct.
That the question?
Exactly.
I know we can do render and replace 2 mono files into a stereo file. Okay, I like a challenge. Hold on. Give me 2 seconds. All right. Okay. All right. let me just turn this into one mono track. It's harder when I don't have demo files available for this, but Now we definitely have to work on that. But if we did, it would be a render and replace kind of thing where you would make a file and render and replace it. That might be something best for Audition, where you can send something to Audition very easily.
Okay.
Oh, and I think I got did I get a clarification what version? We import for, this is the XML. I just sent this out to a group of folks internally. As far as XML clarification, we import 4 and 5, and we export 5.
Excellent. All right, a couple more questions coming in, Colin.
Okay.
Would love to be able to hear audio in Prelude when previewing Avchd files. Not able to do it this time. This is when the ingest window is open.
I haven't tried that, so I assume you're correct. I haven't tried that. If it's, I'm not sure if I can grab a quick Avchd file. And you want it in the ingest window. Yeah, I don't have a file that I could test right now.
Okay.
But if they want to, if any questions that I haven't got answered, if somebody wants to email you or someone at Promax, and we could definitely look into these answers further.
That'd be terrific. Anyone is welcome. We're going to still continue to field some questions, but for the record, my email is Leslie, Leslie, .mais, M-A-I-S, @promax.com. I'd be happy to route your questions and get the information that you need. To take a few more questions on our list here, Colin, someone said, in Prelude, when I ingest files and I'm not transcoding, are we just wrapping the files with new metadata, not renaming files?
Yeah, if you're bringing them in and not transcoding, then you are adding the metadata to the header, excuse me, if the file format allows that. So something like red would not, that metadata would be in a sidecar file. But anytime we can, we're not rewrapping, we're just moving the file. There's no transcoding, nothing. You're just writing it to the header if it applies, or a sidecar file if it doesn't.
Great. Another comment, someone asked, in the last session the presenter said Dnxhd and ProRes would be included out of the box. Is this correct?
That is correct. That's, of course, ProRes not on Windows, but on the Mac, ProRes format that you can expect all the way up to 444 is included on the Mac, encode and decode, and then Dnxhd for both Mac and Windows.
Great. A couple of fielding questions to field here. Yes, this presentation is going to be archived and available at promax.com for future replays, and we will be announcing the winners of the 3 Adobe subscriptions via our Twitter account at Promax Systems later today. But let's continue with the questions. Here's another one. The opening of 2 separate projects would be cool, but I think if we can access sequences and the assets of another project, that goes a long way. It's much better than copying a sequence in one project and pasting it into another.
Yes.
Yes,
thank you very much. That's exactly why we did that. And quite frankly, the feedback that we got from a lot of people who, quote unquote, said it was a showstopper, because this is something new, it does allow them to get by and and get everything they need, really. They would still like to open multiple projects, but it went from a showstopper to a different way of working at things.
Great. Someone's asking, can you explain the difference between an adaptive track and a standard track?
Sure thing. Let me get back over here. And so I'm going to add one adaptive track. And you can tell what an adaptive track looks like because it has that icon right there, that little, looks like a plug going into another plug. And if I click on that, this allows me to map anywhere. Now, right now, we've just got 2 inputs, but we support up to 32 channels of audio right now. So I could be mapping channel 7 to output 1, channel 8 to output 2. And it's, you know, like an internal wiring kind of thing. If I only have 2 outputs, how am I able to hear 32 channels? Well, I can wire different things to different outputs directly inside here. And those adaptive tracks can also contain stereo tracks, mono tracks together in one file.
Okay. Is there an automatic method of using proxy clips, for example, 4K clips and then relinking them again for a final render, like AE does?
No. No, there's no automatic way to do that. If you were on the previous presentation from Trip, he would have shown you the Mercury playback engine, and over here being able to play back at a 16th resolution and work with native media directly inside here. We have a lot of people that work in 4K media that way, but if you wanted to, you could be working in low-res proxy version, but we don't have an automatic way of relinking to those files.
Thank you. For those of you who don't have Twitter accounts, we will be posting the winners also on our Facebook page, and you can link into that from the Promax website, www.promax.com. All right, Colin, one more question here. Is there an intention in the future to allow round tripping with speed grade within Premiere?
Boy, oh boy, absolutely there is. And if I could tell you what I've seen in the lab, you would probably give me a big hug and a kiss, because I'm going to stop myself because I'm going to say things that aren't announced yet, but we are in a really good place to make round tripping very, very easy. That's all I'm going to say. Stand by. It won't be next year. It'll definitely be sooner than that. So one of the benefits of Creative Cloud is we can now add updates whenever we want without any kind of penalties, where in CS6 and before you couldn't do that. So stay tuned. We're going to rock your world.
You received an enthusiastic yay reply to that comment, Colin. For anyone who I'm understanding may not be connected to Twitter or Facebook, I invite you to email me, les.mays, M-A-I-S, @promax.com. I'd be happy to give you the information regarding the Creative Cloud subscription winners. Do we have any more questions? Well, it looks like we've answered all of those intensive questions, Colin, at least at this segment. You're receiving many thanks for a wonderful presentation.
Ooh,
Good crowd. Let me just quickly take the screen back and remind everyone that we have our next presentation coming up on this Thursday, where Colin's going to share even more tips and tricks with us about editing picture and audio and mixing audio as well. So thank you, everyone, for joining us today. We will have the webinars up for replay at promax.com. Thank you again, Colin.
Thank you.